The restaurant was softly lit, golden chandeliers reflecting off wine glasses, quiet chatter filling the air, and the faint hum of a piano drifting from the corner. It was the kind of place where couples leaned close, where laughter mixed with candlelight. But at one small table near the window, a single woman sat alone. Her name was Elena Carter, a teacher, 32, kind eyes that had learned to smile even when her heart didn't always follow. Tonight was supposed to be her new beginning. After years of convincing herself she was fine being alone, her best friend had finally persuaded her to go on a blind date. Just meet him, her friend had said. He's different. So here she was, hair done, soft lavender dress, hands clasped around a glass of water she hadn't touched in 20 minutes. But the chair across from her remained empty. She looked at the clock again, 7:15. He was 15 minutes late. No message, no call. The waiter passed by with a polite smile. Would you like to order while you wait? She forced a laugh that sounded thinner than she meant it to. Not yet. I'm sure he'll be here soon. But the doubt was already creeping in. Maybe she'd been stood up. Maybe this was one of those cruel jokes life liked to play, where you finally gather the courage to hope again, and life reminds you that hope comes with consequences. Outside the glass, rain began to drizzle, light at first, then steady, tracing small rivers down the window beside her. Couples came and went. Glasses clinked. The piano changed songs. And Elena sat, pretending to scroll through her phone, pretending not to care. She texted her friend, "Is not here yet." Then, a minute later, "Still not here." Her friend replied, "Maybe you're stuck in traffic. Give it a bit." So she did. 5 more minutes. Then 10. The waiter returned, his smile a little more sympathetic now. "Would you like me to bring something to drink?" "On the house." She nodded gratefully. "Tea would be nice." When the cup arrived, she stared into the steam, into her reflection in the rippling surface, and whispered, almost to herself, "Maybe I shouldn't have come." It was the smallest sound in a crowded room, yet somehow it echoed in her chest like a confession. Because deep down, it wasn't about the man who didn't show up. It was about everything she'd been through. The heartbreak, the disappointments, the lonely dinners, the birthdays spent pretending it didn't matter. She wasn't angry. She was just tired. Tired of waiting for something, or someone, who would finally stay. A soft laugh came from a nearby table, a couple clinking glasses over dessert. Elena smiled faintly, as if happy for them, but her eyes softened with the ache of wanting what they had. Just then, her phone buzzed again. Her heart skipped. Maybe it was him. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. "Sorry, I'm running late. Please don't leave." Her breath caught. So he was coming. She typed quickly, hands trembling a little. "It's okay. I'm still here." Then she sat back, exhaling slowly. Maybe she'd been wrong to assume the worst. Maybe tonight wasn't ruined after all. The tea had cooled by the time the restaurant door opened again. Elena looked up, instinctively straightening, brushing a lock of hair behind her ear. She expected a man in a suit, maybe holding an umbrella, hurrying toward her table with an apologetic smile. But what she saw made her blink in confusion. 2 little girls, maybe 5 or 6 years old, walked through the door hand in hand. Identical, same dark curls, same soft pink coats, matching bows in their hair. They looked around the restaurant, eyes searching every table. The hostess crouched to greet them. "Sweethearts, are you lost?" The older twin shook her head solemnly. "We're not lost. We're looking for someone." The younger one clutched something in her tiny hand, a folded piece of paper. Elena couldn't look away. Something about them, their confidence, their sadness, made her heart twist. Then, to her astonishment, both girls started walking straight toward her. Elena blinked, half turning to see if maybe they meant someone behind her. But no, their gaze stayed locked on her table. They stopped right in front of her. The taller twin tilted her head, her voice soft but steady. "Are you Miss Elena?" Elena's mouth opened slightly. "Why, yes, I am." The smaller one smiled shyly and held out the folded paper. "Daddy said to give you this. He's sorry he's late." For a moment, Elena didn't move. The entire restaurant seemed to quiet. the chatter dimming, the piano fading to a hush. She took the paper slowly, her fingers trembling as she unfolded it. The note was handwritten, neat, careful, and surprisingly warm. Elena, I didn't want to make you wait alone. Life has a funny way of testing our hearts before it blesses them. I'll be there soon. I promise. Daniel. She looked up, but the girls were already turning toward the door, giggling softly as if they knew something she didn't. Elena called out, voice trembling. Wait, where's your dad? The taller one paused, glanced back, and said with a little shrug, He's on his way. Then they vanished into the rain, two small figures disappearing into the evening light. Elena sat frozen, the letter clutched in her hands, her heart racing with a strange mixture of confusion and wonder. For the first time that night, she wasn't thinking about the empty chair anymore. She was thinking about the man behind that note, the one who sent his daughters first, the one who hadn't given up yet. And as she read the words again, a small, involuntary smile curved her lips. I'll be there soon. The rain had settled into a soft rhythm, tiny beads tapping against the window like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Elena sat still, the letter in her hands now slightly damp from her fingertips. She read the words again, then again. Life has a funny way of testing our hearts before it blesses them. She didn't know this man, Daniel. Didn't know the sound of his voice or the way he smiled when he was nervous. And yet, somehow, those words felt familiar, like they came from someone who had lived through the same quiet disappointment she had. The waiter approached carefully. Is everything all right? Elena blinked back from her thoughts. Oh, yes, I think so. I'm just waiting for someone. The waiter smiled, nodded, and left her alone again. She glanced at the door. Still no one. Outside, the twins had vanished completely. No sign of their small pink coats, no giggles echoing back from the street. Just the sound of rain and the faint music of the piano. She reached for her phone, scrolling through her messages again. Nothing new. Part of her wanted to leave, to walk out and tell herself it wasn't worth it. But another part whispered, stay. Maybe because of the note. Maybe because she hadn't felt something stir in her heart like that in a long, long time. She stayed. 15 minutes later, the restaurant door opened again. A tall man stepped in, shaking rain from his hair, slightly out of breath, holding a small paper bag in one hand. He wore a dark gray coat, simple jeans, and tired eyes, the kind of tired that comes from carrying too much for too long. The hostess greeted him, and he scanned the room quickly, until his gaze landed on Elena. And in that moment, her heart skipped. He smiled, small, uncertain, genuine, then walked toward her table. Elena stood instinctively. He stopped in front of her, his voice gentle. Elena. She nodded slowly. Daniel. He exhaled with relief, a quiet laugh escaping his lips. I'm so sorry. I wanted to be on time. But... He paused, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. My daughters insisted on meeting you first. Her breath caught. The twins. He smiled, warmth flickering behind the exhaustion in his eyes. Yeah, Lily and Emma. They begged me not to be late, but when I couldn't find my wallet, they came up with their own plan. I didn't think they'd actually. He shook his head with a quiet chuckle. Well, I guess you met them. Elena found herself laughing softly too. They're amazing. And very determined. He nodded. Yeah, they get that from their mom. There was a brief pause, delicate, almost reverent, before he gestured to the seat. May I? Of course. As he sat down, she noticed the faint tremor in his hands. Not nervousness, more like the remnants of someone who had learned to hold himself together for too long. So, he said, smiling shyly, I owe you an apology, and dinner. You owe me neither, she replied. Just maybe an explanation. He grinned. Fair. He opened the paper bag and placed a small box on the table. I stopped to pick up something my girls made for dessert. They insisted I bring it. It's not fancy, but... He opened the box. Inside were slightly lopsided cupcakes, pink frosting uneven but clearly decorated with love. Each one had a tiny letter drawn on top. Together they spelled out, sorry. Elena couldn't help but laugh. They really are something. He nodded, eyes softening. They're my world, and sometimes they take over my schedule, too. The waiter returned, smiling this time at both of them. Glad your company made it. Can I get you two started? They ordered simply pasta, salad, and tea. And as the waiter left, the quiet between them shifted. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was tender. So, Elena began, "You're a single dad." Daniel nodded slowly, gaze falling to his cup. "Yeah, it's been 3 years now." Their mom, he stopped, took a breath. She passed away when they were 2. Elena's heart sank. "I'm sorry." He nodded once. "Me too. I thought that part of my life was over. You know, the dinners, the conversations, the possibility of falling in love again." He gave a small, self-conscious laugh. "But then my girls started asking why I didn't smile like before. They said I looked lonely. So, I told them maybe one day I'd try to meet someone new." He looked up at her, his expression sincere and quietly hopeful. "And they said they'd help me find someone who makes me smile again." Elena blinked away, sudden warmth in her eyes. "And that's how I ended up here." "Yeah," he said softly. "They picked you." She laughed in surprise. "They picked me." He nodded, grinning. "They saw your picture when my friend showed me profiles. They said, 'Daddy, she looks kind.' And when my girls say something like that, I listen." Something inside her, something long asleep, stirred awake. "You have very good taste," she said, smiling. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "They do. I'm just trying to keep up." For a while, they just talked. About life. About little things. How he burned pancakes every Sunday. How her students called her Miss Sunshine. How both of them secretly preferred rainy days. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even smooth. But it was real. And somewhere between laughter and silence, something shifted. A thread connecting two people who'd both known loss and were just learning how to hope again. When the check came, he reached for it first. Elena smiled. "At least let me cover dessert. I owe your daughters for the cupcakes." He grinned. "They'll love that. And they'll definitely ask me if you like them." "Tell them I did," she said softly. "Very much." Outside, the rain had stopped. The city glowed, puddles reflecting the streetlights like scattered stars. As they stood, Daniel hesitated. "Can I walk you to your car?" Elena nodded. "I'd like that." They stepped out together, the door closing gently behind them. The air smelled like rain and new beginnings. He walked beside her in silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled. At her car, she turned to him. "Daniel, thank you for coming, for not letting the night end the way it started." He looked at her, really looked, and smiled. "I should be thanking you for staying." A small pause, the kind where both hearts hesitate before speaking again. Then, softly, he said, "Would you like to meet the girls sometime? Properly, I mean." Elena felt something flutter inside her chest. "I'd love that." He nodded, eyes glimmering with something she hadn't seen before. "Hope." As she got into her car, he stepped back and waved, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause between them. Not an ending, not even a beginning, but the quiet, beautiful space where both could exist, and maybe, just maybe, start again. The week drifted by more slowly than usual. For Elena, each day felt quietly suspended between thought and anticipation. She caught herself smiling at the smallest things, the sound of rain against her classroom windows, the scent of lavender from her hair that still reminded her of that dinner night, or the memory of Daniel's smile when he said goodbye. They'd texted a few times since then, short, simple messages. He was warm but careful, never rushing, always thoughtful. On Thursday, a message appeared that made her heart lift just a little higher. "Daniel, the girls keep asking about you. They said if I don't invite you soon, they'll do it themselves." "Elena, then I better say yes before they do." A few hours later, he sent an address and a shy little line beneath it. "Dinner at 6. Nothing fancy. Just us." That evening, Elena stood outside a small white house at the edge of town. The kind with flower boxes under the windows and a bicycle leaning against the porch rail. The air was warm, the last traces of sunset painting the sky in soft peach and gold. For a moment, she hesitated, nerves fluttering in her stomach. This wasn't just a date. It was a home. His home. And behind that door were two little girls who already knew her name. She took a deep breath and knocked. The door swung open almost instantly, and there they were, Lily and Emma, both wearing matching aprons splattered with flour, grinning up at her like they'd been waiting forever. "Miss Elena," they squealed together. "Daddy said you were coming." Elena laughed, warmth flooding through her as she knelt down to their level. "I sure am. And you two look like professional chefs." Lily puffed up proudly. "We made spaghetti, but Daddy said we made a mess too." From behind them, Daniel appeared, wiping his hands with a towel, an amused smile tugging at his lips. "That's an understatement." Elena stood, smiling softly. "I can see that." The kitchen behind him looked like a culinary battlefield. Sauce splatters, flour on the counter, two small bowls overturned. He shrugged with a laugh. "We were aiming for homemade, but chaos took the lead." She grinned. "It smells wonderful." He stepped aside. "Come in. I promise we'll keep the flour explosions to a minimum." Inside, the house felt alive, not perfectly tidy, but full of warmth. Drawings taped to the fridge. A half-built puzzle on the coffee table. The faint sound of a cartoon playing softly from the next room. It wasn't the kind of space that tried to impress. It was the kind that told a story of love, laughter, and survival. Lily grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the dining table. "We set the table all by ourselves." The table was slightly uneven, spoons where forks should be, napkins folded in interesting shapes, but it was perfect. Elena smiled. "You two did an amazing job." Emma leaned in, whispering proudly, "Daddy helped a little." Daniel laughed from the kitchen. "A very little." They all sat down, spaghetti, salad, and garlic bread. Nothing fancy, but the moment she took her first bite, she couldn't help but close her eyes. "It's delicious," she said honestly. The twins beamed. Daniel relaxed a little. As dinner went on, laughter came easily. The girls talked endlessly about school, their cat named Pepper, and how they were planning to teach their dad to dance for the upcoming school talent show. Daniel groaned. "They are determined to embarrass me." Lily shook her head. "No, we just want to win." Elena smiled, watching them. The way Daniel looked at his daughters, patient, gentle, never distracted, stirred something deep inside her. After dinner, the twins ran off to the living room to show her their drawings. Each picture was a burst of color, stick figures holding hands, a big yellow sun, a tiny cat that looked more like a cloud. "This one's you," Emma said proudly, pointing to a drawing of 4 figures. 1, 2, 3, 4. She counted aloud, pointing. "That's Daddy. That's me. That's Lily. And that's you." Elena blinked, surprised. "Oh, me." Lily nodded. "Yeah, we made it yesterday. Daddy didn't know." She looked up and caught Daniel's eyes from across the room. He smiled, soft, almost shy, but didn't say a word. For a brief, quiet second, it felt like the air shifted, something unspoken but understood. Later, when it was bedtime, Daniel tried to convince the twins to let Elena go home without a bedtime story, but they weren't having it. "Miss Elena has to read it," Lily said, climbing onto the couch with a book. Elena laughed. "Are you sure? I might read it wrong." Emma gasped dramatically. "There's no wrong way if you do voices." Daniel sighed in mock defeat. "You've been recruited. Welcome to story duty." He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, quietly watching as Elena began to read. Her voice was gentle, animated when the story called for it, soft when it slowed. The twins leaned closer, wide-eyed, hanging on every word. By the last page, both girls were yawning. Elena closed the book softly and whispered, "The end." Lily mumbled, half asleep, "That was the best one." Daniel came forward, pulling up the blanket over them. "Say thank you, girls." 2 sleepy murmurs answered, "Thank you, Miss Elena." She smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's forehead. "Good night, you two." Daniel led her out quietly, switching off the lamp. In the hallway, only the soft hum of the baby monitor filled the silence. "They really like you," he said quietly. She smiled. "I really like them." They stopped near the doorway. The night outside was still, a few raindrops clinging to the porch railing, the air cool and calm. Daniel rubbed his palms together, hesitant. "I don't usually do this," he admitted. "Let people in. The girls are my whole world. I'm careful who I bring around them." "I understand," she said softly. He nodded. "But tonight, I didn't worry. Not once." That simple line hit her deeper than she expected. "I'm glad," she whispered. For a long moment, they just stood there. No rush, no expectations, just quiet understanding. Then Daniel smiled, a real one this time, unguarded and full of light. "Would it be too soon to ask you to come by again?" Elena met his gaze, warmth rising in her chest. "I'd like that," she said. "Very much." He nodded slowly. "Then it's a promise." As she walked down the steps, the porch light glowing above her, she glanced back once. He was still standing there, watching her go, smiling softly like he couldn't quite believe this was real. And for the first time in years, neither could she. The week passed quietly after the cafe incident, yet something subtle had shifted. Amelia still went to work, still came home to her quiet apartment, but she kept catching herself smiling at the thought of two little girls with matching pigtails and giggling voices. Every evening, she would open her phone, glance at the message draft she'd written. "It was nice meeting you all," and then lock the screen again. She didn't send it, maybe because she didn't want it to end with a simple text. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Daniel was wrestling with the same feeling. He'd been focused for years on raising Emma and Ella alone. Work, school pickups, bedtime stories. His life was a constant loop of responsibility. But lately, he noticed small things had changed. The twins had started drawing Miss Amelia in their crayon sketches, a lady with long hair and a smile. When he asked why, they said simply, because she made Daddy smile too. That night, Daniel stood in his kitchen, staring at the clock, his thoughts racing. The twins were busy making something on the floor, cutting colored paper, whispering, giggling. When he peeked, they hid it behind their backs. "Secret," they sang together. The next day, he found out what the secret was. A folded paper, taped to his office desk. Written in crayon. "Daddy, can we invite Miss Amelia for dinner? Pretty please." At the bottom, two stick figures holding hands with a woman in the middle. He couldn't help but laugh softly, then sigh. It had been so long since anyone outside their small world had been invited in. That evening, he stood at his kitchen counter, phone in hand, typing carefully. "Hey, Amelia, the girls would like to invite you for dinner sometime, if that's okay." He hesitated before hitting send. A part of him feared she'd find it awkward, too sudden. But he pressed send anyway. Her reply came a few minutes later. "I'd love to." Saturday arrived with sunlight filtering through the curtains and the smell of something sweet baking in the oven. Emma and Ella were dressed in identical blue dresses, running back and forth setting the table, each insisting the napkins had to be folded like hearts. Daniel tried to keep them calm, but his heart was racing too. He'd spent the afternoon cleaning every corner of the house, replacing old flowers with fresh ones, trying to convince himself this was just dinner. Then the doorbell rang. He froze for half a second. When he opened it, there she was, Amelia, in a soft beige dress, her hair tied loosely, holding a small box of cupcakes. Her smile was shy but warm. "Hi," she said. "Hi," Daniel replied, voice catching slightly. "Come in." The twins darted forward. "Miss Amelia," they cried, wrapping themselves around her legs. She laughed, bending down to hug them back. "You girls look beautiful," she said. "You too," they answered instantly, making her blush. Dinner was simple: pasta, salad, a bit of laughter, and far too many questions from the twins. But in that cozy little dining room, something unspoken grew between them. It wasn't romance, not yet, but it was connection, a sense that maybe, just maybe, they were all filling a space they didn't know was empty. As they ate, Amelia noticed the walls. There were drawings everywhere, family pictures, the twins' handprints, even a photo of Daniel holding both girls as babies. But there was one frame that caught her eye. A photo of Daniel with a woman, beautiful, smiling, holding newborn twins. Amelia's gaze softened. Daniel followed her eyes, then said quietly, "That's their mom. She passed away after giving birth." The room fell silent for a moment. Even the twins, who had been giggling moments before, lowered their heads. Amelia nodded softly. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He smiled faintly, the kind of smile that hides pain. "It's been years, but they keep me strong." Later, when the twins went to their room to play, Daniel and Amelia stepped out onto the small porch. The air was cool, the sky painted with fading gold. He handed her a cup of tea, and for a while, they just stood there in quiet. No forced talk, no awkwardness, just two people who understood loneliness in different ways. Finally, she spoke. "They are amazing, Daniel. You've raised them with so much love. I can see it in every corner of this house." He looked at her, eyes soft. "I try. Some days are harder than others." She smiled gently. "You're doing better than you think." Their eyes met, not with intensity, but with calm. It felt safe, and for the first time in years, Daniel realized how much he'd missed the sound of someone saying his name like it mattered. When she finally stood to leave, the twins came running down with something in their hands. A drawing, this time of 4 people. The twins, Daniel, and Amelia. "Family dinner," they declared proudly. Amelia blinked back tears. She knelt down and hugged them both tightly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. As Daniel walked her to the door, she turned and said softly, "Maybe, next time, it's my turn to cook." He smiled. "I'd like that." When she was gone, the house felt quieter, but warmer too. The girls climbed onto the couch, giggling, whispering things he couldn't quite catch. And as Daniel turned off the lights, he glanced at the drawing left on the table. He didn't move it. He just let it stay there, a small promise of something new beginning. The morning sunlight spilled gently through the curtains of Daniel's house, lighting up the small living room where toys were scattered across the carpet. The clock ticked quietly, the smell of fresh coffee mingling with the faint scent of syrup and toast. It was Sunday, the only day when the world slowed down a little. But today felt different, because today, Amelia was coming over again. The twins had been up since dawn, whispering plans and arguing over which outfit made them look more like princesses. Their laughter filled the house like birdsong, while Daniel stood in the kitchen, trying to act like he wasn't nervous. But he was. It had been years since anyone other than family had come by twice in 1 week, especially someone who made his daughters light up this much. At exactly 10, a soft knock came at the door. Emma and Ella screamed, "She's here," before Daniel could even reach the handle. When he opened the door, Amelia stood there, smiling shyly, dressed in soft cream-colored jeans, a light cardigan, and holding a small basket of pastries. "I brought breakfast," she said softly. "I thought maybe we could all eat together." "You didn't have to," Daniel replied with a grateful smile. "But I'm glad you did." The twins tugged her inside instantly. "We made a blanket fort. Come see." She laughed, setting the basket down and following them, her laughter echoing in the hall. Daniel leaned on the doorway, watching the scene unfold. Amelia kneeling on the floor, pretending to be a queen inside their messy fort of pillows and chairs, the twins crowning her with paper tiaras. Something about it felt right. Natural, like she had always belonged there. After breakfast, they all went for a walk to the park nearby. The sky was clear, and the path was lined with golden leaves. Amelia walked beside the twins, holding each of their tiny hands, listening intently to their endless chatter about school, friends, and the monster who lived under their bed. Daniel walked a few steps behind, hands in his pockets, watching quietly. He couldn't help but notice how at ease Amelia looked, her laughter soft and real, her eyes full of warmth. She wasn't trying too hard. She wasn't performing. She just was, and his girls loved her for it. At the playground, Amelia helped the twins climb the slide, her hair blowing in the wind, their laughter loud and free. When one of the girls fell slightly, she caught her, hugged her close, and whispered, "You're okay. brave girl. That small moment hit Daniel deeper than he expected. Because it wasn't just kindness. It was care. The kind that couldn't be faked. Later, as they all sat on a park bench eating ice cream, Emma turned to Amelia and asked innocently, "Miss Amelia, do you have kids?" Amelia smiled faintly. "No, sweetie, I don't." "Then you can share Daddy with us," Ellis said proudly. Daniel nearly choked on his ice cream, while Amelia burst into surprised laughter, her cheeks flushing red. The girls didn't notice. They were too busy swinging their legs, happy and content. But as the laughter faded, Daniel caught Amelia's eyes, and for a moment, neither of them looked away. It wasn't awkward. It was gentle, familiar, like an understanding pass between two hearts who had both known loss and found warmth again. When they returned home later that afternoon, the twins insisted on watching a movie together, The Princess and the Lighthouse, their favorite. Daniel started setting it up, but before he could, Amelia said softly, "Why don't you take a break? I'll watch it with them." He hesitated. "You sure?" "Absolutely," she smiled. "Go relax. I've got them." He watched for a moment as the three of them settled on the couch, a blanket draped over them, popcorn bowl between their laps. Then he quietly stepped out onto the porch, sitting in the fading sunlight. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt this peaceful. Through the window, he could see Amelia laughing softly, helping the girls untangle their hair, listening to them explain the movie scene by scene. She wasn't a guest anymore. She had slipped into their lives like she had always been meant to. When the movie ended and the twins dozed off, Amelia gently covered them with a blanket and turned off the TV. She stepped outside and joined Daniel on the porch. "Your daughters are incredible," she said quietly. He smiled. "They take after their mom." Amelia nodded, her eyes soft. "You must miss her a lot." "Every day," he said. "But it doesn't hurt the same way it used to." "Not anymore." She looked out at the horizon. "Sometimes, the ache never really leaves. It just changes shape." He looked at her, noticing the hint of sadness in her tone. "Did you lose someone too?" he asked gently. Amelia hesitated, then nodded. "My younger brother. A few years ago. We were close. He was all I had." Daniel didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes told her he understood, deeply. For a while, they sat there, the silence heavy but healing. Two people who had both carried grief, sitting side by side in the golden light, finding comfort in knowing they weren't alone anymore. When Amelia finally stood to leave, she glanced back at the twins sleeping on the couch and whispered, "They make this house feel alive." He nodded, voice soft. "You do too." As she stepped into the cool evening air, she turned back with a small smile. "Next Sunday, can I bring them to the art fair downtown? There's face painting and music. I think they'd love it." Daniel smiled back. "They'd love that." And after she left, as he looked at the blanket fort still standing in the living room, the paper tiaras on the floor, the smell of a perfume faintly lingering in the air, he realized something that both comforted and scared him at once. He was starting to imagine a future again, not just for himself, but for them. The morning of the art fair came with the smell of pancakes and the sound of laughter echoing through Daniel's house. The twins were buzzing with excitement, wearing matching denim jackets and flower clips in their hair. "Daddy, do you think Miss Amelia will like our drawings?" Emma asked, clutching a small folded paper covered in crayon hearts. "She'll love them," Daniel said, smiling softly as he poured syrup over their pancakes. He glanced at the clock. Amelia would be there any minute. When the knock came, both girls ran to the door before he could even move. Amelia stood there, sunlight spilling behind her, wearing a soft yellow dress and holding a tote bag full of art supplies. Her smile lit up the whole doorway. "Ready for our adventure?" she asked. The twins squealed and jumped up and down. Daniel laughed quietly, handing Amelia a bottle of water. "Good luck keeping up with them." "I'll survive," she teased. As they left, Daniel stood by the door a moment longer than usual, watching them walk down the path, Amelia holding each girl's hand, their laughter fading into the distance. He didn't realize how quiet the house would feel without them. The art fair was alive with color and sound. Music floated through the air, the scent of popcorn and fresh paint mingling with laughter. Booths lined the streets, handmade crafts, watercolor portraits, and stalls where children could paint their own little canvases. Amelia let the twins lead her from one booth to the next, their eyes wide with wonder. They painted butterflies on each other's cheeks, tried making bracelets, and ran toward a magician performing nearby. For the first time in a long time, Amelia felt something she hadn't felt in years: belonging. At one point, Emma tugged her hand. "Miss Amelia, look," she said, pointing to a small corner store with a sign that read, "Draw Your Family." "Can we do that?" Ella added, eyes pleading. "Of course," Amelia smiled. They sat down at the table, surrounded by sketch paper and colored pencils. The twins started immediately, drawing stick figures, big smiles, a house, and a bright sun. Amelia drew alongside them, careful, gentle strokes forming small details. Two little girls holding hands, a man standing beside them. When the twins peeked at her paper, they gasped. "Miss Amelia, that's Daddy." Amelia smiled softly. "Is part of your picture, isn't he?" They nodded proudly. Then Emma looked at her drawing and added another figure, one with long hair, standing next to Daniel. "That's you," she said simply. Amelia blinked hard, her throat tightening. For a moment, she couldn't speak. She just smiled and whispered, "Thank you, sweetheart." A few hours later, they returned home, tired, sticky from cotton candy, but glowing with happiness. Daniel opened the door, grinning as the twins ran inside, shouting stories all at once. Amelia stood quietly, laughing as the girls handed him their drawings. When Daniel looked down at the paper, he froze. There he was, drawn with two smiling twins and Amelia by his side. The word family was written in shaky, colorful letters across the top. He looked up at her, eyes soft, voice low. "They really adore you." Amelia smiled faintly. "I adore them too." For a long moment, silence filled the space. Not awkward, not heavy, just real. Daniel took a slow breath. "I never thought I'd see someone fit into our lives like this again." She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. Maybe it wasn't about fitting in. Maybe we were just meant to find each other. The twins, unaware of the weight of their words, tugged at Amelia's sleeve. "Miss Amelia, can you stay for dinner?" Daniel hesitated, waiting for her answer. She smiled, her voice trembling just a little. "I'd love to." That evening, the kitchen filled with warmth, music playing softly, the twins setting the table while Amelia helped Daniel cook. It was simple, pasta and salad again, but everything about it felt whole. Every laugh, every glance, every small movement carried a quiet message. This was no longer just a house. It was a home again. When dinner ended, and the twins began to nod off on the couch, Amelia helped tuck them in. She kissed their foreheads good night, gently, naturally, as if she had done it 100 times before. Then she stood there for a moment, watching them sleep, her heart full. When she turned, Daniel was in the doorway. He didn't say a word at first, just looked at her with quiet gratitude. "She hasn't slept this peacefully in weeks," he said softly. "You bring them peace." Amelia shook her head, smiling through tears. "They give it back to me, Daniel. I didn't realize how much I needed this, until now." He stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Then don't go." Amelia looked up, surprised. "I mean," he continued, "don't disappear. They'd miss you. I'd miss you." Her eyes glistened. "I wasn't planning to." For a moment, neither spoke. The room was still, just the faint hum of the night outside and the soft rhythm of their breathing. And in that silence, something unspoken settled between them. Not a confession, not a promise, but an understanding. That somehow, against all odds, they had built something worth holding on to. Weeks later, a new photo hung on the living room wall, right beside the one of Daniel's late wife. It was simple: Daniel, the twins, and Amelia standing together at the art fair, the girls holding their family drawing proudly. When people asked who she was, Daniel smiled softly and said, "She's family." And though life wasn't perfect, though mornings were still messy and nights still quiet, one thing was certain: Sometimes love doesn't arrive with grand declarations or perfect timing. Sometimes it simply walks in, holding the hands of two little girls, and says softly, "Sorry we're late."